Hey guys, if I can get your attention, real quick, Rick and Kyle wanted me to run through kind of a presentation that I give to the RT students and folks like that when they come through. But they also brought to my attention a lot of you guys don't really get to see our product and know much of kind of the why behind the scenes as to why you're doing what you're doing. You know what to do, but it's also important to know the why we do it. So I want to kind of tie that in with some safety stuff, tie it in with some questions to pick your brains, to educate you guys a little bit. And then I've always found, for me anyway, the best way to do that is to bribe you. So if you answer the question correctly, I got some money for you. So we'll see who participates. I do want to give a disclaimer. Obviously, I know all of you wear gloves and safety glasses and steel-toe shoes and all those things when dealing with this stuff. Today I'm not, because we're here at the pool table goofing off. But so do not attempt this at home. So we'll leave it at that. So the first thing I want to say is, number one, thank you guys for all that you do. I don't know that we have a record of how many days without people being hurt here, but it's pretty stellar. You guys do a pretty good darn job. We had bumps and scrapes and bruises and that kind of stuff. Somebody truly getting injured hasn't happened in a long time, and I don't think anything's documented.
You guys all do a great job with it.
But part of that is because we follow the rules. So when you walk around in the back, I tell people when they come in, it's kind of like the bat cave. Everything's labeled. You know, empty tanks, process tanks, full tanks, to be tested tanks, quarantine tanks, and all that stuff. We do all that kind of stuff so that we don't get stuff confused, not only for him, okay, but when he comes in 2 days later and he's like, well, what's that thing? Then all he has to do is look at the sign and go, okay, hey, I'm either going to ask somebody or I'm not going to touch it. And then that way we know where we're at. So lots of things are labeled, including our cylinders. You guys go through the safety checks, so looking for the color, looking for the date, looking for the identity, is the drug label right, blah, blah, blah. And that also includes the great big VGLs. You see the big ones that make their big loud noise. If you guys have noticed lately, some of them say nitrogen on them. You guys notice that? Okay, it's not in green, it's in black. And it has a label that goes all the way around. There's a big famous reason for that. And it's because in Ohio, a maintenance man couldn't get the VGL to fit to the pipe fitting that he was running it through, so he modified it and made it work, and he pumped it through and killed 16 people in a nursing home. He gave them nitrogen instead of oxygen, thinking that he had oxygen. So if you guys go look at our manifolds, we've got all the rules, kind of like the cookbook. First I do this, then I do that, and if you follow the recipe, then you're going to get what you want to have. But behind each one of those, and no kidding, truly is a dead body. Not here, but throughout history, they go, oh yeah, we better write a rule about that. That's what your people hurt. So because that guy ended up gassing people, for lack of a better word, they came up with a 360-degree label. He thought he was dealing with oxygen, but the label was on the back. Now, it's all the way around. On our VGLs, where's Chris, when he's filling them, we have locks, so you cannot change the fittings. Okay, so we do all that kind of stuff just to make sure that whether it's us who, we got a pretty darn good idea what we're doing, but when you take it out to a place, some guy or lady, they don't know. So we do that. Also with that, you guys know when you're hooking up the rack that we've got the two little pins and one big pin before you pull it down, okay? Anybody know why we do it that way? Anybody know why they have pins and stuff like that? Will this help clear your memory any? Okay. There's a reason why. And it's because different gases have different densities, okay, and different gases also affect your body different ways. Now, on Earth, we've got 20.8% oxygen in the atmosphere. We've got about 79% nitrogen, and we've got about 1% all kinds of trace gases, so argon, xenon, neon, as in neon lights, that's a real gas, and I think neon's purple. Krypton, who knows about krypton?
Where Superman's from?
Correct. There's a real gas, and guess what? If you electrify it, it's green. So anytime you see a green neon light, that's the gas krypton.
That's kryptonite.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different gases in there, but only one's really good for the human body, and that's oxygen. Okay. So if given the wrong gas, you breathe enough of it, you're going to fall over and die. Okay. So I got for you different. This one you'll know. Okay. That's the oxygen one. It has what they call a 2,5 pin index. And it makes sure that you can't hook up a different tank to it, okay? And we know you wouldn't do that because what don't we do? We don't modify, we don't jury rig, we don't fix anything. We just make sure either it fits or it does not fit. So I'm going to pass these around. This one happens to be nitrous, so laughing gas. this one, actually I have the wrong one, that's the oxygen. That's some kind of lab gas, I don't remember what it is, but I found that thing and got it. So you guys can take a look at that. That, again, the whole point is, if something doesn't fit, okay, don't force it, come see somebody. Talk to Jack, talk to Ricky's been here a while, somebody's been here, and then ultimately Rick or Kyle or myself. Okay, so that's important to know. Also, I want to make sure I don't forget, because I have another point about that. I want to, in a second, I'm going to put liquid oxygen here. I don't know, some of you kind of see it, but you don't really get to see it. So when I do that, I want you to come up closer. I'm going to try not to spill it. It'll be a little active when it starts. But does anybody happen to know what the temperature of liquid oxygen is here? You may not know. 100 degrees below zero? 297 degrees below zero. I'd pay you, but you got coached. So 297 degrees below zero. And it's the cousin of the liquid nitrogens and the other liquids that they burn warts and moles and all that stuff off of you. And if you look at liquid here, again, on this planet, because there are places in the universe where it does its own thing, and there are planets where they have like volcanoes of oxygen, and it spews it hundreds of miles into the air, which would be something cool to see, but we probably wouldn't be there very long. But here, okay, the liquid is very, very concentrated, so they bring it to us in the tanker trucks, and we get 6,000 gallons at a pop, okay? But if we're in cooking class and we had 1 cup of liquid, so like we're measuring flour or sugar or whatever, 1 cup of liquid, does anybody know how many cups of gas that equals? Okay, it's 680. So a little bit of liquid turns into a great big piece of gas, and that's why they transport it that way, and that's why when you see the liquid reservoirs, and people have that little portable that's this big, and they go for 10 hours, where we've got the big E-tank that only goes 5, okay? That's why they do it that way, all right? One of the things that we also do around here, from a safety standpoint, is there are 3 things you need to have a fire. Anybody know? Can anybody name one? Perfect. We got oxygen around here? Yeah, we're looking pretty good in that department, right? Okay. So you got a triangle. Oxygen's one of them.
Spark.
Correct. I'll even pay you and you for that. You need some kind of spark, some way to do it. Okay. One other thing. Does oxygen burn? Do you guys know?
It's like a fabric or some sort of.
Yeah. Okay. Fuel.
Yes.
Okay. So oxygen itself doesn't burn. That's why if you look at our labels, the green label says non-flammable. Okay. It won't burn, but it helps other stuff to burn. Got news for you guys. You're made of fuel. Okay. And oxygen also has a vapor, kind of like gasoline. But you can't see it, you can't smell it, you wouldn't know it's there. And I used to do a demonstration where I would light a pipe cleaner little guy, and I made him KU colors, and I did it on purpose. But I would burn him first without additional oxygen, okay, and then I would burn him with oxygen. He would go up like a sparkler, okay. And I did that until I almost set off the fire alarm at the schools, and I'm not ever going to do that again, because that would have been horrific. But it is real. I think they've got that stuff online. But you are made of fuel, okay? Your clothes burn, your beard burns, and your skin burns. So we try to make sure that triangle, that no matter what we do, we don't have one of those things. Okay, so we use brass and aluminum, neither of them spark. Okay, we try to limit the wood and crates and pallets and things that are around, and certainly no smoking, no open flames, et cetera, et cetera. Okay?
There's an important reason to keep racks clean, debris out of those troughs, stuff like that. Now you got a fuel in there, you got oxygen, now all you need is a spark, and that can be static spark, anything. So
Yeah,
that's-
so if we remove one of the legs of the triangle, the whole thing falls apart, we're good to go. Okay? Who's been here less than 6 months? Okay, just you guys answered. Okay, what is the color internationally for oxygen?
Green.
Close.
Yellow.
Is a trick question. It's actually white. But in the United States, it's green.
Green.
Okay, so that's one of the identity things as you put them on the rack. If you get one that looks burnt or it's gray or whatever, number one, if it's gray, it shouldn't fit. We know we don't modify things, so that would be a real big tip to you. But green, correct. Okay, so that's just part of what we're looking for, and that's why when people tell me, they say, "Well, I want my tanks back," I'm like, man, it's a big sea of green out there. They're hard to find. Okay. Also, when you're filling, one of the things that we do is you're following your cookbook. First you inspect the tank, and then you empty the tank, and then you vacuum the tank, okay, and then you put your thermometer on the tank, and then we start pumping the tank, and I'm probably skipping a few there, but you guys know. What happens to the tanks when we start filling them?
You get warm.
They get warmer. Does anybody know why?
Expanding like
Yes, and yes. As we start to pump, there's a thing called Boyle's Law, and he's a smart guy, smarter than I am, so like that, and I'll misquote his formula, but I think it's 1 equals P over T or something, but it says as the pressure goes up, the temperature goes up, but the volume goes down. So the temperature and pressure are inversely proportional to the temperature, or whatever one got on whichever side of the equation. Long story short is as you start to pump it, they heat up. Okay? Why is that important? Why do we put a thermometer on it? Well, one of the pieces of the triangle we talked about, spark or heat or flame, so we're trying to avoid that. Okay, so that's what you're doing. That's why you're watching that stuff, and then, of course, to let it settle back out to where it goes. Okay? So any questions, thoughts on that? Okay? The big silver pieces, so we got the great big bulk tanks out back, and you see the silver things with all the fins on them out back. Anybody know what those are called? No, it's called a vaporizer. Okay? Remember how we said it was 860 to 1 on the ratio? And that's just physics. That's the molecule of oxygen. That's what it wants to do from a gas to a liquid. Those fins allow it to hit a lot of heat exchange, and therefore it vaporizes into a gas, and so we can pump it.
It's like a radiator in reverse.
Kind of. We're trying to warm it. We're trying to get it to a usable, we want it in a usable format by the time it gets to the tanks. Okay? The other thing is, oxygen's kind of funny. Like if you had an ice cube, okay, and you put it on the pool table, it's gonna, what happens if it melts? It turns into water, okay? And then if we wait long enough, what happens to the water? Evaporates. Okay, so ice, which is H2O, so 2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen molecule, will can be a solid as ice, can be a liquid, and then can be a gas. That's what clouds are in essence, okay? Oxygen doesn't do that. Oxygen has because it's so pure, it does what they call sublimates or sublimation point. Like you hear dew point they talk about on the weather, it has a sublimation point, which means it goes straight from a liquid. You'll never see it ever in a solid form. We can't get it that cold here. But it goes straight from a liquid into a gas, okay? And we'll demonstrate some of this stuff, hopefully if I got enough of it.
That is nitrogen.
Oh, is it nitrogen?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it'll do the same thing. So, and actually, I think it's a little colder by a couple degrees.
Yeah.
I don't remember anymore. I want to say 301, but I don't think that's right. Okay, so the fumes you coming off, okay, guys, when we do every morning, Leroy, when you do the checks to make sure the bulk tank's doing what it's doing, it's 99 point whatever, okay, so almost 100% pure, so kind of like ivory soap, okay? You guys can step up here if you want. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but now, the funny thing is oxygen kind of has a blue color, the nitrogen doesn't. So, okay, now what it is doing is, and it'll be active and it'll boil here until it really turns into a gas and goes away. And what you see coming off is fumes, and of course you can do that too. But it is boiling, okay, but it is boiling cold. Okay, it wants to turn into a gas here. That's all it wants to do. Okay, and I told you guys, and I don't know, honestly, the expansion factor for nitrogen, but I'm sure it's pretty close to oxygen. So if we take some of this stuff, and again, I would normally have on gloves and all this other stuff, but not today, okay? But if we put it into here, if I can get enough in there, okay? And we put this guy on there, which is why I was blowing it up earlier. Rick, would you come on over here? Kind of hold it around the neck. Don't go too low, just so I don't knock it over. Okay. So you can see as it warms up, it wants to expand. Because we already said that the colder things get, the smaller they get, it wants to expand. If we sat here long enough, it would get to 860 times that volume and probably pop the balloon. Okay, or unless the rubber's got enough oomph to hold it back in there. But that's what it does, okay? So when you see, like the VGLs, where's Chris? One hissed behind him this morning, he jumped, okay? It doesn't have a choice, okay? Quit hiding. Either it hisses and lets the pressure off, or it goes boom. And of course, it's made of metal, and that's not good, okay? And so on those, there's what, 2? We got a primary and a
You have
secondary.
burst disc, and then you have that pressure relief that scares you. The other one is a thin metal burst disc, so if for some reason that primary fails, the secondary blows, and then it has to be replaced.
So you should have more concern if you don't hear them hissing, honestly. But in the little ones, the little Helios bases are the same way. They're set to pop off at either 22 or 46, which you probably won't even hear. You just kind of hear them hissing a little bit. And then it's got one at 80 in case those two fail. Well, there's only one, but that's a secondary backup to it, okay? So we know if we take the cold gas and we allow it to warm up, it's going to expand because it's going to do 800 and whatever for the nitrogen. Conversely, okay, we take it and we go the other way. And as long as I don't hit my fingers, I'll be happy. But we could take this dude and make him go the other way. And when he does, he gets really, really brittle. And if we sat here long enough, it'll pretty much turn back into a balloon. Okay? You hear it cracking, right? Certain things like balloons, okay, are pretty damn resilient. If left alone, it'll go back to its original state, which is pretty cool. So, but just kind of the reverse of what we're talking about. Okay? So, souvenir. Outside of that, Rick, do you got anything safety-wise? You know, the only other thing I would tell you is we had a guy, I won't say his name because it would make Andrew King very sad if I said his name. But he was goofing around and he had an E-tank and he put the drill on it. I don't know why he did that, but he opened it and it went nuts. And it flew. I wasn't here, but I heard about it. It's kind of one of those deals where if you go to bed and it's going to snow and you wake up in the morning and there's 5 inches of snow and you go, it must have snowed. I heard about it, which was it took off, flew, and went back and hit and lodged under a 40 cart and bent the cart. So when I give a talk to nursing homes, it's always about 40 women and 2 guys. It's every time. It's the same thing every time. And so I'll say, well, who's the strongest one in the group? And there'll be one guy who's like, oh, I guess it's me. You know, they go, yeah, it's Corbin. He's the strongest. And so I'll say, Corbin, tell me, you look like you work out. What do you bench press? And he doesn't want to say because he'll be embarrassed. So I always say 315, right? Because that's a lot of weight. Anybody's been in gym knows a pretty good chunk of weight. He'll go, yeah, it's 315. Perfect, dude. That tank bench is 2,200. It's 8 times stronger than you are. Now let's talk about safety. So I would tell you guys the same thing. I mean, you get used to handling them every day. You forget about them. You know, watch the necks. Don't have them high or anything else because it will ruin your day. And I don't want to have to make a call to your mom or significant other, whoever it may be. So please, safety first. If you don't know, ask, especially you do guys. If you're not sure about something, just ask. There's older, wiser folks around here. Did you want to add anything to?
Well, like Mike showed you guys with the balloon, and like you talked about not changing parts on any of these containers that we have out here, like those VGLs, how we talked about has a primary, the one that blows off, and there's a secondary burst disc on them as well. Something happens to that burst disc or the primary keeps blowing off, never plug that. Never put anything there to stop it. You know, those things are made a certain way. Chris, you kind of seen how I'll look at the pressure builder and I'll say, okay, this has a 350 PSI relief on it, but this pressure builder will only go to 110 because that's what it's bench set at. You never adjust those regulators either because you can't adjust them to the correct pressure and you'll never get it back to the correct pressure. Once they're adjusted or any of those little screws are turned on them, they have to be set on a bench with a constant pressure across that you know what it is. You have to have a known factor there. So when you kick on those pressure builders on those tanks, you'll see that needle start to go up. And that's like what Mike was talking about here, the vaporizer, when you guys are filling tanks, it's the same thing built into those units on a VGL that puts liquid through those coils and you'll see them frost up. It looks like a spring. That's inside of those two inner, the inner vessel and the outer vessel, and it goes here and it evaporates. That's why when you open the gas valve on top, you get gas and not liquid out. So that's how that works. And that's why you read those pressures on there, because every one, they can change that little bell shape builder on there, and that's how you get those higher pressures. And you always want to match those two up. You should always have a higher relief than your pressure builder.
The last thing I'll say before we do one other thing is, if something doesn't look right, tell us, please. Leaky hoses,
Yep.
the handle just doesn't go right, missing a pin. The first board of pharmacy inspection we ever got, guy went around and looked at every pin and every one of them. He goes, oh, they all look good.
Every single
He
one.
did that, every single one. Because of what we do as a drug manufacturer, and then sometimes it's hard for you guys to understand the work that you do, what effect it has on people. You know, we've had power outages where we've handled entire cities. They got a hurricane going on in Florida right now. If that was us, we'd be expected to do our jobs. So you guys touch a lot of people, and it's hard sometimes to understand that, but realistically, what you guys do every day probably affects about 15,000 people every single day. And the fear is, God forbid, we do something wrong, or don't test before it goes out, and you got a bad batch of tanks, and it goes in a nursing home, and 32 people have that. You know, the last thing you want them to do is go, well, it said Leroy tested it, and they're going to come talk to you, and they're going to come talk to me. They go, why don't you explain this to us, Leroy? And you're going to go, yeah. But the point is, you guys are professionals, and I know you do that stuff right, but we've got to make sure we do it right every time, just for your safety, your peace of mind, and then to avoid having outside people come in.
Hey, Mike, real quick, for those of you that don't know, I go around and audit all the branches, make sure we're being compliant, following our procedures and stuff. One of the biggest things that I see from fillers across the board is not doing that heat test like Mike talked about. It's the easiest thing to do, and you can catch almost every tank that's going to be empty by doing that heat test. The biggest complaint we get is empty tanks coming out. So think if you're down in Florida right now and just say, you know, Kyle didn't do the heat test, and you get 6 empty bottles and you got nothing to breathe on. You literally walk down, feel them. It's the heat of compression. If they're filling, they will get warmer than whatever it is. So if you have one that's not getting warm, you know, it probably didn't get opened up all the way. So super important that we're checking that heat test every time.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, way back in the day, was not the first filler. Me and Aski, honestly. But there were valves I knew I opened. They went down, it's not open. It's a bad valve. Simply a bad valve. I would have never known. But yeah, last thing I want is grandma to go to a wedding and go, oh, this is great. And turns on her tank, there's nothing in there. She ends up in the ER. I don't want that on my head. So one other last thing. I think, again, probably the smartest way to do this, Rick, would be anybody that's been here 3 months or less. Who were they again? Good, perfect. We have to have the test of who will eat the frozen barbecue sauce.
I thought we were doing the hot ones challenge for those guys.
Oh, yeah, we could do that too.
I will tell you guys, my dad has been in the hospital last few days getting some procedures done. And this morning I walked in there to check on him. He's supposed to be coming out today. And I was waiting on the elevator, and I see a lady come walking up. She's got a cart with an oxygen tank on it, breathing it, going to see her loved ones, which that oxygen tank gets her out of her house so she can go see whoever it is. Like me seeing my dad there in the hospital, and it had a pure air vapor. So you guys did that. You guys gave her the ability to go see her loved one. Now, who knows, you know, maybe it was the last time she's going to see him. You guys made that happen, and that's, like Mike said, how important this is. And this morning,
Where the ambulances and the fire stations and
Literally
light
this morning.
flights and all those people that we do. You guys are saving lives. I mean, you don't know it, but you are.
she was walking with one of you guys' tanks this morning in the hospital. So
All right, Anthony. If we can get it out of here. I don't know if I can get it out of here. It may have frozen on the bottom. You might get luck, buddy. Oh, no, sorry, Anthony.
It looks like bacon at this
Little
point.
barbecue jerky for you, buddy.
What is that?
Don't, it's too cold right now.
stick your tongue on there.
Yeah.
Just lick it. It's like a popsicle.
Good, you don't lick the flagpole on January 1. Don't put that in your mouth right now. No, if we sat around long enough, it would turn back into what it was. But you know, the nitrogen is a funny one. It's very, very abundant. They use it for lots of stuff. Like if you see, like those great big oil tanks, I mean, like the big, huge million-gallon ones, they'll put liquid nitrogen on the top of those so that if it gets struck by lightning, because it's a big metal thing out in the middle of an empty field, if it gets struck by lightning, there's no oxygen to ignite it. Or when you guys get, like, when you eat a bag of chips, you open up the bag of chips, it's filled with nitrogen. If there's no oxygen in there, bugs can't grow, makes it live longer. And the shelf life is greater. And then I was telling,
Coffee, they do that too, right?
yeah, probably. It wouldn't surprise me. But the point is, if you can knock the bacteria and the bugs, if you will, out, then your shelf life.
Don't they do it in race car tires too? 'Cause they don't.
That's because it's drier.
Okay.
It's drier, and so if you were to use air, you can have water, and water will heat up, and the tires will wear more. And then the last one, show of hands, who's been in prison? Anybody? Just me? All right, Trey. All right, good. One of the things they do, and I know this because I saw them do it. You got your bars like this, right? But there's always the flat ones like that they drill the holes in, and they drop the bars in there. They take the bars, the vertical round ones, and soak them in liquid nitrogen, and they drop them down through those holes, and then when they warm up, they expand. Translation is you ain't leaving.
That's how I got them out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, dental floss and toothpaste.
No, the liquid nitrogen, I got.
Oh, you had some on you? Yeah, yeah. But I
Down here right
mean, you'll see their VGL sitting along the phone lines because it's cheaper for them just to run the gas instead of trying to find out where the leak is when it rains. So there's a lot of uses for nitrogen in the industrial piece, and lots of uses for oxygen. Most of the oxygen stuff is medical. So, and believe it or not, which you guys you'll never get there, but you really don't want to breathe 100% oxygen. It's not really good for you. It's too much. The radicals will eat you up a little bit, and you guys don't have to worry about that, but just so you know. The hospital, one of the first things you want to do is get people off 100% oxygen, get them weaned down. So that's it. I mean, if anybody has questions, I'm happy to help, but I think the big thing is, if something doesn't look right, it's not acting right, doesn't make sense, ask. Please ask, because somebody around here's got some knowledge of that thing. Other than that, I thank all of you. Again, you guys are wonderfully safe. Please continue to do so. We'll do our thing, okay?
And communicate it to each other too. See somebody else and maybe they're not, aware that they're doing something that isn't safe. Hey, bring it up. Protect each other out there. I know Nick's brought fans to me and said, hey, this thing's got a cord that's worn through out here and it's out by oxygen.
Corbin
those
found
things are
the bomb.
Yep, Corbin found a tank with a
The
fuse
potential
in it.
bomb.
When you see those things, bring them up.
Yep. So that's it, Kyle. I think if anybody else doesn't have anything. Great. Thanks.